I'm now going to make some sweet paste, sometimes referred to as sugar paste. Now there's a couple of methods I could use to do this. I could use a creaming method or a rubbing in method, and for this one, in this case, I'm going to use the rubbing in method. So to start with, I'm going to sieve the flour into the bowl. So the flour's sieved, and now we're just going to get the butter in there. And a simple case of rubbing this in. But first, I'm going to just get my other ingredients ready. So I'm just going to mix together my egg and sugar. And I'm just going to just bind them together really. And I'm just doing this so that when I've got to the stage where I've rubbed in the fat and the flour, the butter and the flour, I'm just ready to pour in the liquid ingredients. So that's just mixed together, ready to go. So now we rub in. So just nice and gently, not squeezing too much pressure into the butter. I'm just going to break it down. By cutting it into the little cubes, I'm actually saving myself a little bit of time and effort so that I don't have to now break this down using my fingers, which obviously are warm. So we're looking for the breadcrumb, ground almond type texture while we do this. There we go. So I've got it to resemble the breadcrumb stage, like so. And I'm now just going to introduce the other ingredients. And now I'm just going to add the sugar and the egg. Make sure we get all that in. And we're just going to bind the two main components together. So the paste is coming together nicely. So we don't want to overwork it at this stage, but it's also quite loose. So I'm just going to bring it together using a little bit of flour. So light sprinkle on the board. And turn this onto the board, and just a couple of little turns. So we're now going to rest the paste. So I'm just going to bring over some cling film. Just carefully place the paste into the cling film, wrap it, just give it a little press so that it's nice and even, and that's the paste ready to rest. So I'm going to put this onto a tray and into the fridge for at least half an hour before taking it any further. So the sweet paste has had a good half an hour to relax. So I've taken it out of the fridge just to re-acclimatise slightly. So we can unwrap it, and we're going to line a flan ring with the sweet paste. So I have a flan ring here, which I've just lightly buttered and dusted with a little bit of flour, tapping out any excess flour. And that goes onto a baking sheet with a non-stick mat at the bottom. So that's ready to go. I also have a cartouche, which we've cut, which will go inside the ring, and some baking beans to help it keep its shape. So I've quite a bit of pastry here for this, so I'm only going to use half at this stage. And just with a little bit of flour, just a dusting, we're going to work this gently into a round shape. So without any pressure, making sure the rolling pin's nice and clean, hasn't got anything stuck to it, because that will leave an indentation in the paste. I'm just going to roll very gently, keeping the paste moving all the time. And I'm happy now that I'll have enough pastry to go round the base of the ring, but also up the sides. So at this stage, just pick up the pastry around the rolling pin nice and gently, lifting up, bringing the ring towards myself, and then just making sure I've got a nice position. I'm just going to drop that over and then quickly work the pastry into the ring itself. So I want this to be quite thin. And at this stage, to take off the excess pastry, just let it hang from the edge and roll forwards and backwards, and that will cut this spare pastry away. And because we've only used it once and it's still very soft and supple, as you can see, that'll be absolutely fine to use again. So at this stage, the pastry's now soft again, so I'm just going to let it chill in the fridge for a minute or two, just to reform its shape. We can dock it, which means to put small holes in the bottom, and this, because we want it to be crisp and light, will let any air escape during the baking process. So give it a good dock with a fork. You can get dockers, which are little handles with spikes coming out the bottom, which would be a lot quicker, but I'm only making one, so I can quite easily dock with a fork and maybe just a few into the corners. So I'm just going to let this go into the fridge just to harden slightly, and then we can line it with our cartouche and our baking beans. So I'm just going to pop this in the fridge literally for 3 or 4 minutes just to harden slightly. So I've just given this a couple of minutes just to chill again slightly, so that I can just finish it off, make sure that it's really nicely pressed into the sides, and I'm going to try and get a very neat top on it. So I'm just going to even it up by using my fingers and thumbs, just so it slightly comes over the ridge, and then using a sharp knife and cutting from in towards the outside, I'm just going to slice a little of the paste from the top to create a very straight edge. Now, to bake the flan blind, what we need to do is put in some baking beans. So here I've just got some dried beans, which will help to keep the shape during the baking process. So in here I'm just going to carefully place my cartouche, making sure that it's right into the edges. And then I'm going to use some baking beans, just dried beans that aren't going to be used for anything else. And we're just going to pour this into the centre. And spread those out so that they can help to keep the shape of the flan as it's baking. So we're now going to bake this blind, which means we're cooking it without a filling so that the pastry is cooked, and then we can add the filling and finish the tart off. So I'm now going to put this into the oven. This will take about 15 minutes at 200 degrees.